All right.
All right, so we're having a fundraiser next week. All right, so this is a story that takes place with Rabbi Lazar, who is the chief rabbi of Russia. And it's a very powerful story. We're going to have to try and remove the politics out of it, because right now, Putin is it's not on the up and up. Putin's stocks are pretty low now, but it's a very powerful story nonetheless. So Rabbi Lazar is of course, in Russia, if you're the chief rabbi, you have a very close relationship with the president, because if you don't, somebody else is the chief rabbi. And it happened one year that he was invited for a meeting at the Kremlin. And he was told that the meeting would take place at 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock. He told them, listen, Shabbat comes in at 3:30, and I have to light the menorah, and I need to just know, is the meeting at 12 or is the meeting Chabad time? You know, is it a little bit later? Is it Jewish time or is it on time? They said, no, don't worry, it runs on time. So he shows up and he comes there early, and he gets there at 11:30, and he's ready for his meeting. Anyhow, at that stage, a delegation from England was there. They had a meeting that was supposed to end at 12, and the meeting kept going and kept going and kept going. And Rabbi Lazar called up his wife and he said, listen, you better bring my menorah to the Kremlin. I don't know if I'm going to get out of here before Shabbat. He's waiting. Eventually, by 2 o'clock, he gets called into the president's office. He goes and he speaks to the president, and the meeting takes longer than expected. He comes out at about 3 o'clock. And by this stage, there's no way he's getting home. But he got his wife to bring his menorah, so he had his menorah with him. So before he leaves, he goes over to somebody there and he says, listen, I need to ask you for a favor. I need to light the menorah. It's the 8th day of Chanukah. And I have to light this menorah now, because by the time I get home, it's going to be too late. I can't light it after the Shabbat comes in. I can't light the menorah. So they say, okay, we'll find you a room. They find him a private room. They tell him he can light it on a special mahogany table. And then he says to them, listen, I appreciate that. He said, but the Chabad tradition is that we light it in a room, and we light it in like a doorway. So he says, I need it to be a little bit lower, I need it to be across from a doorway. They say, okay, Rabbi, no problem. They find him a doorway. Anyhow, he sets up his menorah, and then he says, but I need a light. And they say to him, well, the law is that no one's allowed to make fire in this building, because it's dangerous. You can't have any fires. He said, little problem, I have to light my menorah. So backwards and forwards, eventually they say, okay, we need to light the menorah, no problem. They find the chef. Don't know why they had to find the chef, because every Russian smokes. But they found the chef, and he brought his bic. You know, lights first time, every time. The bic. Oh, that's the pen. What's the lighter? Bic. What's the pen called? No, there's another pen that says lights first time, every time. There was a special pen. Anyhow, so he gets a lighter, and he lights the menorah, and he lights it just before sunset, and he sits with the menorah for a few minutes, and he has to head home. It's Shabbos. He puts on his coat. It's freezing cold winter, and as he's walking out of the Kremlin, the I guess you'd call him the minister of religion is walking out at the same time. So he says to him, what you doing? He says, I'm walking home. It's Shabbat. He says, you're going to walk home? It's freezing cold. He says, it's Shabbat. I don't drive. He says, you know what? Out of honor for you, because you came to the Kremlin, we can't let you walk home alone. I'll walk home with you. So Rabbi Lazar says, sure. So they start walking home. And on the walk home, Rabbi Lazar says to the chief of whatever you call him, the minister of religion, he says, you guys must think I'm a little cuckoo, you know. Here I am, and I'm asking you to light my menorah, and then it can't be on the table, it has to be in the doorway, then I need the fire, it can't be anything else. And I'm driving you guys crazy. You guys think I'm a little cuckoo in the head. So this is what the message I want to share with you tonight, and we'll expound upon this as the evening goes on. The minister says to him, he says, Rabbi, he says, we know there's other rabbis that we can get that wouldn't mind if they lit the menorah with something other than fire, or they don't hold so strongly to the beliefs and their faith, and they'd light it at other times. We know that you're very, very ardently committed to your religion the same way it's been for thousands and thousands of years. He says, not only do we not think you're crazy, He says, this is the exact reason why we want you to be the chief rabbi of the Jews in Russia. Because we know and we understand that you are committed to your religion through and through. And that's the kind of person that we are looking for in order to be the chief rabbi of the Russian people. The lesson of the story is very powerful, and that is like this. That often as Jews we think that if we're a little less Jewish and we fit in a little bit more and we act a little bit more like the Goyim, then the Goyim are gonna love us and they're gonna want to accept us and they're gonna want to even be nice to us, maybe even on college campuses, who knows, maybe in other places. And Congress, and maybe the squad will like us if we're just a little less Jewish. The truth is, the world will never love the Jew. The world can only respect the Jew. And this is such a powerful lesson for each and every one of us in our lives. And that is that our commitment to Judaism needs to be solid and strong. Each one of us in our own ways. Some people keep Shabbat, some people keep kosher, some people have a Friday night dinner, some people put on tefillin once a day, once in a while. But we're all trying and working hard. It's not about how much we do, it's about where we're aiming towards, what we're trying to do. And as Jewish people, we have to know, we have to understand that our commitment to the Torah and the mitzvahs is at the core of who we are. And the first person that needs to believe this is ourselves. We can't wait for the rest of the world to accept us and love us, and then we'll be a little bit more Jewish, and then we'll feel safe. The Jewish people need to be committed to our Judaism with every fiber of our being. And when we do that, then we start to give off light. We start to radiate the light of Judaism, and we start to bring God's name into the world, and we elevate the world up to a higher level. And that's what Chanukah is about. Chanukah is about lighting candles. Chanukah is about the story of the few over the many. Chanukah is the story of the Jews fighting against the Assyrian Greeks. And the Assyrian Greeks didn't mind people being religious, by the way. They just didn't like the idea of holiness. You know what the difference between religion and holiness is? Religion can come in all kinds of forms and shapes. And a lot of people their religion perhaps is a little bit more like superstition than religion. I do these things because they make sense to me and hopefully good things will happen to me. And what happens if good things don't happen to you? I'm not sure if I believe so much. I do these things because they make me feel good. And what if they don't make you feel good? I'm not so sure if I'm committed to them. The Greeks and those that serve idols, basically, you wouldn't call it religion, you would call it superstition. They really served idols because the idols made them feel good. They would go out and they had all kinds of gods that did all kinds of things. They had gods of envy and gods of fire and gods of this and gods of that. And they humanized God because that made sense to them, because they themselves were flawed. So they wanted a God that was also flawed. And they wanted a God that fit into their life. They said to the Jews, you can be religious, so to speak, superstitious. You can do your religions and serve your God. But you can't do the things that are holy. Holy means, even if I don't understand it, I'm doing it because God said so. That's what holy means. Holy means it doesn't always make sense to me, and it doesn't always fit in with my life in the way that I feel. Holiness means a connection to something that transcends myself. I am mundane, I am regular, I am physical, part of this world, but my soul is godly, and I'm here not to serve my ego, the me, the I, the part of me that only wants to feel good. I'm here to serve or to connect with my soul, which will then allow me to connect to God, Hashem. And where is that ultimately found? That is ultimately found in places that we don't necessarily understand or doesn't necessarily make sense to us. That's what the Greeks were against. So they took the Bet HaMikdash, which was the holiest place for the Jewish people, and they brought in pigs. They said, you can bring sacrifices here, but you're going to bring whatever sacrifice we want. There's no such thing as a holy animal. We'll use whichever animal we want. That's why they specially brought pigs. And they sacrificed pigs in the temple. They didn't say no. They didn't shut down the temple. It wasn't like, Harvard or UPenn or something like that, where they were like, no religion. They were like, you can be religious, but you got to be our type of religious. That's why they said no circumcision. Doesn't make sense to us. No Shabbat. Doesn't make sense to us. No kosher. Doesn't make sense to us. Everything that makes sense, okay, we're okay with what makes sense. We are humans, and we are the pinnacle of humans are the pinnacle of creation. That's why the Greeks were all into their bodies and all into philosophy, which is, by the way, why as Jewish people we specifically eat donuts and oil and all the fattening things on Chanukah, because we're in an effort to be as non-Greek as possible. The Greeks were well built and chiseled, and they looked fantastic, tall and strong. They were all even natural. None of them were juicing. None of them were juicing. They were all natty, as they say. However, that's why we eat fatty things, because we're going to show the Greeks we're going to be fat and happy. Never mind you. It's also in the winter, it helps. You don't need a beach bod, you know. Works out well. But the Jewish people, Chanukah is all about saying that the human being is not the pinnacle of everything. The human mind is not the pinnacle of everything. Are you guys ready for something a little bit deep, and then we'll go back to stories and stuff? Are we okay with something a little bit deep? Go deep. Go deep or go home. Let's go. We'll try. Is everybody with me still? L'chaim. L'chaim. So as humans, we think that intellect, and my intellect, is the ultimate part, and ultimate defines me. Whatever I understand, this is my point of view, and this makes sense to me, and you can't prove another way. And whatever I believe, this is correct, and this is my way of seeing things, and that's how it's going to be. This is what makes sense to me. And we think that logic really is like defines who I am. However, you have to understand one very important idea. Logic in the mind is a tool of the body like any other tool. Your hands can build things. Your hands can do certain things, make you eat, can build tables. Your hands, you can use it for many different things. Logic is only a tool. Your mind is a tool. Whatever you put in, that's what your mind is going to understand. I can convince you of this today, something can make sense to you today, one idea, and tomorrow I can convince you of another idea. Because your logic is not foolproof. We all like to think my brain and my logic is foolproof. This is what I believe, this is what I understand, this is the way that it is. But if somebody smart, really smart, were to come along, they could convince you out of your most core beliefs and get you to believe in different ideas. That's the way the mind works. The mind is just a tool. Logic is just a tool. It's just something that I use how I see the world. But I can download different programs into my logic. Does this make sense a little bit, or not so much? Somewhat? I've got like about a 20th of the room said, yeah, Rabbi, that makes total sense to me. And I think they're the ones that drank the most. All right? So the logic... Logic is just what you understand can be changed. Can you follow that so far? You can understand this today, and tomorrow you understand something differently. So your mind can be twisted. Your mind could be manipulated. You want proof of it? Everything that we have in today's world is all about marketing. All of a sudden, you need a new watch. All of a sudden, you need a new car. All of a sudden, you go somewhere and you're convinced you need a Peloton. Then you're convinced you need a... I don't know, you need to buy more jewelry, then you're convinced you need a new phone. You need a Tesla. That you do need. Every Jew should have a Tesla. We're constantly being convinced by marketing people of things that we don't need, and we're being convinced that we do need them. And then you get it, you think you're going to be happy, and a day later, you're unhappy because you're Jewish. Because... Nobody got that. You know, they say the old joke about the Jew that's in hospital, and the nurse comes over and says, Mr. Goldberg, are you comfortable? He says, I make a living. Every Jew, no matter what they're doing, they can always be doing better. You can always have a little bit more, right? So logic is actually very, very, you got to be careful what you allow into your mind. That's what the Torah teaches us. We got to be careful what we see, what we hear, what we speak about, and where we are. Because it changes the way we see the world. So the Greeks said, no, that's not true. We are the pinnacle of creation. What we think, that is the ultimate truth. What I believe, what I understand, that is the ultimate truth. Thank you. We find in society today, the biggest problems is that people are not open to hearing somebody else's opinion. Everyone's living in a little echo chamber. You go online, you go to social media, you get told everything you want to hear. You hang out with people that believe the same things you believe in, and everybody thinks they've got it all figured out. When was the last time you actually had a real open conversation with somebody that understands something differently to the way you understand it? Not very often we do that. As humans, it's very hard to allow ourselves to open up that department of our minds. But the Greek said, no, whatever I understand, that's it. This God tells you to do a circumcision to a kid on the 8th day, makes no sense, out. Kosher, why do you keep kosher? Who cares? Out. You want to bring sacrifices, why only sheep and cows and kosher animals? Out. They said you have to be whatever we understand. Holiness means I transcend myself. That's where the soul is found, and that's where actually light and warmth and holiness resonates from. If all you're doing is what feels good to you, you're not giving off light. You're actually very closed off to the world. You'll find that you have people that are very closed off. You don't want to hang out with them because they're all they think and believe is what they understand. People have to be able to transcend their own minds. And that's actually where inner peace is found. Inner peace is found in transcendence. When I can transcend my ego, myself, I can connect to something higher than myself. Okay, we're finished with the complicated part. L'chaim, l'chaim. So the job of Chanukah is to help us all light up our own souls so that we can go out into the world and light up the world. That's what Chanukah is all about. We have to take Chanukah with us every single day of the year. From Chanukah gives us the energy to light up the world. The Lubavitcher Rebbe came up with a very strong campaign that we should have public Chanukah menorah lightings. You go to the mall, you see Chanukah lightings. This is all because the Rebbe pushed for this. When the Rebbe started doing this, everybody was like, I don't know if this is a good idea. We're Jewish in the house. Don't be so Jewish outside the house. We're going to be Jewish in the shul. We're not going to be Jewish in the mall. We're not going to be Jewish on public land, open to the whole world. And the Rebbe said our job down here is to be a light unto the nations and to give off light. So I want to share with everybody a very, very powerful video of the Rebbe speaking all about this.
Thank you, Rebbe.
We're just getting started.
Asked me what I do, and I said Gates of College. I'm going for a master's degree, and I'm taking up teaching. I had rave about a Lubavitcher Rebbe from the time I was born. Here I am, an American-born college boy, sitting, and there's the Rebbe right there. He asked me what I do, and I said Gates of College. I'm going for a master's degree, and I'm taking up teaching. And he said, Ich habe gegangen to college. And I said, what did you study? No, he said, my field was electrical engineering. He said, but I preferred to turn the lights on in people's souls.
Und das sehe ich, bei jeder Mensch in seiner Arbeit, wenn tut im Leben, nicht sein, wie ein Mensch darf tun, es muss nicht auf der Kirche ist, wo der Ewigste hat dem gegeben, wird ein Licht, was beläuft, nicht nur allein und seine Sprache und sein Stadt, sondern die ganze Welt herum.
Every person has a soul, a Yiddish Neshama, and it's like a spark, like a flame. When I went home, he said he would like, if I could, to form groups of young people in one way or another, social activities, religious activities, bring them in to Jewish life, see that pilot light or that flame is lit, brightening it, illuminating it.
The Rebbe worked very hard to make me feel comfortable. I told him that the Hillel Rabbi suggested that I might go and study in yeshiva there. So the Rebbe told me he thought it would be a good idea. I didn't have very much background. I barely remembered how to read Hebrew. What I tried to do was just sort of get to the bottom of what was here, what was motivating people, what it meant to really be a Jew like this, and so on and so forth. A little while later, basically, I wanted to go and visit some of my friends at Penn State, and I'd written to the Rebbe about going there. And the Rebbe suddenly called me into Yechidus after Meyer. Rabbi Chanukah just tapped me on the shoulder and just pointed to the Rebbe's office. The Rebbe said to go back to my friends at Penn State and speak about the mitzvahs connected with Purim. I told the Rebbe I didn't want to set myself up as an example. So the Rebbe said to me in very clear, unmistakable terms. Every Jew has to be an example, whether he likes it or not.
Das wird da nicht jeder einzelne Meister, der Ewigste, der Beschaffer von der alle Welten, hat angestellt die Welt als ein und einziger Mensch, durch ein und einzige Tat, Meister sein, oder Dibur oder Machschowo, kann wirken auf die ganze Welt, wie der Rambam bringt das Aris Plover, heit in Absag din Halacha.
I taught a course in Hashkafa and Jewish philosophy. What is Judaism? Basic concept of Judaism. I get a phone call, and it's from Lubavitch. I think it was Rabbi Groner. And he said, we understand you have a sabbatical. The Rebbe wants to meet with you. Rebbe wants to meet with you. You can imagine what a fantastic thing that is. He said, the Rebbe would like you to go around the world and wants you to speak to the Makar of Jews. I said, are you sure you have the right person? Do you know what I look like? I don't look like a Lubavitcher. I don't wear a black hat. I come in, I'm asked to be seated, and the Rebbe explains to me, what men wil van euch is to go to the Far East, Singapore, Bangkok, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Australia, New Zealand. You should redden ze Yidden, mekar zijn Yidden, you should teach them. Tell them the things that you, as a Rav and a Malamed Torah, know could ignite the spark that's in their souls.
Die Eigenschaft von Licht ist doch, als sie verspricht sich herum und herum, in alle Kavim und in alle Richtungen. Aber nur mich stellt nicht weg, als Sache, was soll ich verhalten, is a demol beteva hoeit in der Eigenschaft von Lichtigkeit ist, als sie hat nicht in Grenzen, wo sie der Gericht at Katzviteo.
After I came back, almost 3 months, being the car of Jews of all kinds, I met with the Rebbe again. He said, and I knew this about you. You are a chassid in camouflage. You're a chassid in camouflage.
Wo das kann doch jeder, kann das ein Spiel sein, in einer bestimmten Moos auf einer Ruhm.
My husband and I were leading a very social life. My husband was a doctor in the community, and we were invited to many parties. I told the Rebbe that I was very busy socially, but I felt empty inside, like I had a terrible void in my life. And he just looked at me and he said, there's Judaism, you have your religion.
Bischaß nutzt seine Näglichkeiten in der Fuß der Moos, wird a gesunde Gashmis zu Beruchnis, der ämnisse Schleimus, a sei der Ruf und sei der Nishono, seinen Wirksam und Tun und Peilen in der Fuß der Moos, wo das wird ungetan und abgetan, wie sie darf zu sein, wenn nutzt es in der Fuß der Moos, seiner Spur und der Wirkung auf alle Menschen herum sich.
The Rebbe told me that my husband's a plastic surgeon and that he makes people beautiful on the outside and that I should make people beautiful on the inside. And I took that very seriously. I tried to give people spiritual meaning to their life. I would invite them to our house for Shabbos, and many people came. I would set the table days ahead of time so that when the people came to my house, I could try to fulfill some of the job that the Rebbe had given me, to give them some type of feeling for their religion.
Rebbe, thank you and happy Hanukkah. Thank you, Rebbe.
Not too much inside, on the outside also.
Thank you, Rebbe.
That is the message of Hanukkah.
Thank you.
Welcome people door with such a knowledge that you feel love Chanukah around you.
Thank you, Rebbe. I need it in my neighborhood.
Thanks very much. Bless you.
Thank you.
Subsequently, every year at Hanukkah, we light this giant menorah that lights up a large portion of our street.
Die, wo der Ewigste was eine Sache gewählt, not a sehr rumgewählt a Schlichus, a sie sollen können ma Spier sein, a paar Schune, oder a paar Stadt, oder a paar State, oder a paar ganze Medine. Seine Mewake Schellele Fikecha, Giete der Ewigste der richtig und genugende Kefis, sie sollen das durchführen Beteil. Nebeke Ansorten der Leben.
Beautiful, beautiful video. L'chaim, l'chaim. Alrighty. So each and every one of us has the power to light up ourselves, and by extension, we can light up the whole world around us. Question is, what happens if I don't feel like I'm ready to light up the world? What if I'm not at the level yet to light up the world? What if I feel like it doesn't all make sense to me yet? That's where we have to remind ourselves that even though I don't maybe understand everything and I don't feel like I'm at that level yet, it's okay. If you know Aleph, you teach Aleph. If you know Beis, you teach Beis. You invite a family to your house for Shabbat. You invite somebody over to a class to study Torah. You invite somebody else to come with you to Mench Club, to Shul. You bring yourself, perhaps, to Shul. You come to Mench Club, meets Shabbat. Bring a friend. We all have that power to light up the world. And we should never underestimate ourselves and underestimate our potential. I want to share with you another very beautiful story. This story takes place in the year 1932 in the German city of Kiel. And perhaps some of you have heard the story, but it's a very powerful story to repeat. And the story takes place in the house of Rabbi and Rebbetzin Posner. And that year, it was the 8th night of Chanukah, was a Friday. And Rebbetzin Posner, her husband, lit the menorah. All 8 candles were burning. And she was about to go and light the Shabbat candles. And as she was about to go light the Shabbat candles, she looked out the window and she saw the menorah in the window. And across the street was a German, the Nazi flag was hanging across the street, right from where she was. This is just before the Hitler got voted, Yimach Shemai, may his name be erased, with Hamas and all of them. May they be erased and forgotten and become part of history. Amen, l'chaim. And she saw this, and here was I should have put a picture, I should have given you the picture because the visual is very powerful. There's a menorah in the front of the picture, and right behind it in the window you see the Nazi flag. And she decided to take a picture of this moment. She took a picture of the menorah, and right behind it is the flag. And when she developed the picture, because once upon a time, you took a picture, and you had to go and develop the picture. Do you remember? You only had a 24 exposure film, right? Also, we should say l'chaim to Kodak, alav hashalom. By the way, the story of Kodak's a powerful lesson also, just to be ADHD moment. Hey, look, a squirrel. Kodak said that we control the market, and when digital cameras came out, they were like, we don't need to go to digital cameras. We own the film. We own the whole market. And they weren't willing to change. They weren't willing to grow. They weren't willing to realize that we're all limited at certain times, and the only way to progress is to grow and change, but grow and change in healthy and holy ways, ways of goodness. Sometimes change is not good. This was to change it in a positive manner. So as Jews, we have to always open ourselves up to changing and to growing a little bit more. Anyhow, so she took, when the picture finally got developed, anybody ever had that experience? By the way, another ADHD moment. When you took that picture and you were like standing next to a waterfall or a beautiful view, and then you finally got the picture developed, you asked your friend, take a picture, just be careful. And they took the picture and it came out like all blurred, and you were waiting like a whole week to see that picture. I was like, Gatus, that's how life goes. Anyhow, Back to what we're talking about. So Rebbetzin Posen over here gets the picture developed, and she writes on the back of the picture as follows. She says like this. Let me get myself right over here. She wrote in German, and she said like this. The flag says, thus says the flag, that the flame of Judah, oh, there we go, thank you. Can you blow that up a little, make that a little bit bigger? There we go, the little green thing. And it's hard, can you see the picture, everybody? So there you have the menorah, the round menorah, thank you. Thank you, L'chaim Tamar, Shkoyach. You're gonna get a raise. We're gonna double and triple your salary. Which means you still don't get anything. You get, there you go, thank you. So there you have the menorah, and in the background you have the flag, the Nazi flag. And she wrote in the back of the picture like this. The flag says, so thus says the flag, thus says the flag, that the flame of Judah will die. And then she says, thus says the menorah, the flame of Judah will continue. All right, something to that effect. The flag says, thus says the flame of Judah will die, and the flames say, thus the flame of the flame or the power of Judah will continue. Anyhow, the next soon after that, Hitler got voted in, and World War II happened. And we know what happened. It was a terrible time for the Jewish people. Another ADHD moment. When you're teaching your kids and your grandchildren about Judaism, make sure that the Holocaust is not the central theme of Judaism. It's not just they died, let's be Jewish. There's a lot more to Judaism than the Holocaust. We have to remember the Holocaust, we have to know the Holocaust. But if all you're teaching your children is that people try and kill us, no wonder they don't want to be Jewish. Judaism is so much more. It's all about the light. It's all about Torah. It's all about connected to something higher. And that's why they hate us, because we are something. Not just they try to kill you, we survived. The miracle is that we survived. But we can't just teach children and young kids that you have to be Jewish because people hate us. It's not a great club to be a part of, you know. Be Jewish because everybody wants to kill you. L'chaim! If that's the central Judaism, then don't blame your kids. You got to teach them about Shabbos and mezuzah and holiness and how good it is to be a Jew. It's amazing to be Jewish. It's not just people hate us. So it can't be the central theme is Holocaust. It's part of Judaism. It's part of our history. Throughout all the generations they try to kill us, but we survived and we continued and we're here today. It's not just about death. It's about the holiness of the Torah and the mitzvahs that we are down here in the world to impart. Anyhow, so the Holocaust happened. 80 years later, on the anniversary of Kristallnacht, which really was like the watershed moment in for World War II and Jewish hatred. Another idea, don't use the word anti-Semitism. It makes it sound like, you know, I like caviar, I like Chardonnay, and I'm a little bit of an anti-Semite. It's a very nice word to use. It's called Jew hatred. That's what it's called. It's called hatred of the Jews. People have a nonsensical and illogical and a terrible, disgusting hatred of the Jews. Side point, back to what we're talking about. A lot of side points tonight. Maybe the IPA is talking. But anyhow, back to where we are. On the 80th, eight decades later, on the 80th anniversary of Kristallnacht, the president of Germany was meeting with the chief rabbi of Germany, Rabbi Tachtel. Rabbi Tachtel is the Chabad's emissary in Germany, and he said to him, "It's coming up to the 80th anniversary of Kristallnacht. What should we do in order to remember or to commemorate this day?" So Rabbi Tachtel said to him as follows. He said, "Soon's coming up to Chanukah, and I think we should light a giant menorah at the Brandenburg Gate." The Brandenburg Gate was where Hitler held many of the Nazis, I don't like using his name, where the Nazis held many of their rallies, and they inspired people for hate and for genocide and for killing and for real terrible things. And he said we should light a menorah as a sign of Jewish survival and Jewish continuity and of giving off light right there at the Brandenburg Gate. And the president said it's a brilliant idea. And that year Chabad put up a giant menorah, and they brought out the beautiful cherry picker, you know, the truck that could raise them up to a very high part. And they got the president of Germany to light the shamash, which is the candle that lights all the other candles. And Rabbi Tachtel told him that you will light this candle, and this candle I will use to light up all the other candles of the menorah. You are lighting the light that's going to give off more light. And he took the candle, and they lit all the candles. And at the place of where the Germans said, here we will destroy the Jewish people, 80 years later, we have the Jewish people. Jeez, Mark, you're like amazing. Look at this guy. 80 years later, and I believe every single year since then, they light this beautiful menorah right there at the Brandenburg Gate. Not only do the lights of Judah not get extinguished by the Nazis, round of applause. Not only were the lights of the menorah of the Jewish people not extinguished, but we outlived them, and we continue all over the world to give off light. And the story doesn't end over there. That little menorah of Rebbetzin Posner got handed down to her grandson, whose name is Yehuda Manzerbach, who lives in Eretz Yisrael, lives in Israel. And every year he lights that menorah. And he lights that menorah with his family and his grandchildren. And every year he pulls out the picture and he tells them the story of that menorah, saying that they said that the lights of Judah will be extinguished, but the light of the menorah tell us that the Jewish people will outlive and will continue forever. Amen. And that is the message. L'chaim, l'chaim. Hey, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai, Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu. Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai l'chaim. So we're sitting here today in West Hills, California, and we're lighting the menorah. And hopefully throughout Chanukah you lit the menorah at home with your families. But the menorah is not the only mitzvah, because the lights of the menorah don't only represent the menorah. They represent Shabbos, they represent mezuzah, they represent tefillin, they represent the Shabbat candles, they represent charity, they represent kindness, they represent study of Torah. It's not only about the menorah. The lights of Judah continue not because once a year the Jews lit the menorah or light the menorah. It's because Jews live like Jews every day. And we persevere and we push through outside negativity and also internal doubts and internal negativity. That's what it means to be a Jew. To be a Jew means I transcend myself and I give off light, or I transcend my ego, my negativity, my doubts, my darkness, and I give off light to the whole world. And I want to conclude with one final story. This is a story that's told by Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, whom I'm sure many of you listen to his classes. If you don't listen to Rabbi Y.Y.'s classes, then you should start listening to Rabbi Y.Y.'s classes at the yeshiva.net. Very powerful classes. And he says the story that he heard from his brother, Rabbi Simon Jacobson, who's also a great rabbi. And he heard the story directly from the person who it happened to. The man says like this. He says, I am a survivor of Auschwitz. He said, it came the time of Chanukah. And he said, well, I was in the camps, and my father was not well, and I somehow got into the hospital or the infirmary area, and I got some medication or some ointment to bring to my father, and I came to the barracks looking for my father, and I couldn't find him anywhere. He said, till today, he didn't know what happened to his father. But he says in the camps there were those people that somehow transcended time and space. There were some people that somehow held on to the Judaism and inspired others. And they would say to everybody, now is Chanukah, now is Pesach, now is Rosh Hashanah. They kept track of Judaism and they tried to keep everyone's spirits inspired. And he said an old man came over to him and he said, young man, he said, you know that tonight is Chanukah? I said, yeah. And the old man said, perhaps we should light the menorah. And he said, but how are we going to light the menorah? We're in Auschwitz. He said, I know that your father is no longer with us, but I'm sure it'll bring a lot of comfort to his soul if we can light the menorah. So this man says, he says, you know what, I said to this old Jew, I'm going to find a way to light the menorah. So the next day he went to work, and he worked, I guess, in some sort of factory, and he got hold of some oil from the machines, or whatever kind of oil he got hold of. And they found some, they took some cloth or whatever, some strings from their garments, and they decided that night they're going to light the menorah. Problem was, they didn't have fire, which is, by the way, a fascinating idea, that in the camps they literally couldn't get fire. They had nothing. So they called the Russian chef from the Kremlin. Just making sure you're with us. So they decided that they're going to have to find, so they knew that there was a flame that was burning, or some embers were burning somewhere outside of the barracks somewhere, and they knew if they go there, they could somehow get fire. So that night, him and this old Jew, they snuck out, and they went and they took this little flame, or with this little candle thing that they had with the oil and the wick in it. They're going to try and get some light. On the way, they're busy walking, sneaking in the dark, and they hear an SS soldier start screaming at them. And he says, where are you going? And he sees that they got this thing in their hands, and he takes away the candle, he takes away their, you know, what they're going to light, and he's about to start screaming at them. He reaches for his pistol, and this man says a miracle happened. He says that all of a sudden another guard starts screaming at this guard, telling him he needs to go somewhere. So the SS guard turns to this old man and the young man, and he says to them, I'm going to come find you. And he goes off. And yeah, they go back to their barracks, and on the way back, this man says, this old Jew said something to me that lives with me till today. He turned to me and he said like this. He said, you might be feeling like tonight we never lit the menorah. But I'm telling you that tonight we created a miracle that is greater than the miracle of the story of Chanukah. He says, what do you mean? He says, he might have taken away our candle, but the fact that we were willing to go and we have sacrificed everything to go and light a candle, we lit an internal menorah. We lit our own souls. And that menorah cannot be put out by anybody. Nobody can put out that menorah. And that's what we lit here tonight. It's a menorah that is to God far more powerful than any menorah ever lit, even more powerful than the menorah lit in the times of Chanukah. They went back to the barracks, and later that SS soldier came back, and he found the old man. Somehow this young guy got away somehow. He didn't find him, or he ran away, whatever happened. And he said that they took out the old man, and he killed the old man that night. He said, until today, the most powerful menorah that I've ever lit in my life was the menorah that I lit that night inside of my own soul, inside of Auschwitz. He said a few weeks later, the Russians came in and they liberated Auschwitz. He said, and this old Jew obviously never saw the liberation. He said, but I'm here as my father's representative, and I'm here as that old Jew's representative, and I'm here as a representative of myself. And that is that we lit the menorah inside of our souls. And that is ultimately the message of Chanukah. Even though tonight is the last night of Chanukah, and you might be thinking, well, I want to light the menorah tomorrow night. You can light 9 candles, it's okay. Even though you might be thinking that I can't, the message of Chanukah and the menorah burns inside of each and every single one of us. Even though we can't light the menorah tomorrow night, tomorrow morning we can get up, put on tefillin. Tomorrow morning we can get up and do a kindness for somebody else. Tomorrow morning, if you don't have a mezuzah at your house, give me a call, we'll come by, we'll put up mezuzah in a specific, you don't have in all the doors, we'll put up in another door. Inside of your house, you can bring more holiness, you can buy Jewish books. Tomorrow when you go in the car, you can put on a Jewish podcast and listen to a class instead of listening to talk show radio and getting depressed, or listening to the news and getting confused, or listening to other Bobbemeises out there. Inside of us all, we can light the spark. And that's what the Rebbe was talking about, that we have to go out into the streets, light the menorah. That's what the Rebbe was talking about. We have to light up our souls. We have to light up the outside. The message of Chanukah is not just about a menorah. The menorah represents what's going on inside of me. That's what the menorah represents. If you think the menorah is outside of you, then you didn't hear the flame, you didn't hear the message of the flames. In fact, the previous Rebbe would say that when you look at the menorah, you have to listen to the message of the candles. What does that mean? Listen to the message of the candles. Candles don't speak. You have to listen to the message of the candles. And the message of the candles is that the Jewish people survived, we persevered. The Maccabees fought for what was real and what was true. Every night we light one more candle. Every night we add in holiness. Every day we add in holiness, and every day we fight for what is right and what is true. And what is right and what is true and what we have to fight for is not always an external fight. The external fights actually are a lot easier than the internal fights. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to say, oh, they hate me, they hate us, this university and that university, and the Jew haters here, and the Jew haters there, and the Jew haters and the Jew haters. And what mitzvah are you doing? We're busy talking about the Jew haters all day. We don't have time to do mitzvahs. Do you know what's going on at Harvard? You know what's going on at UPenn? You know what's going on at all the Ivy League schools? I'm so busy getting angry about the whole world outside of me, I have no time to work on my internal world. And what happens is when you get very angry in the outside world, which is good, it's good to get angry, and we should all stand up, and we should all send letters to all the presidents and universities, and you should all send your kids to yeshiva and not to college, l'chaim, l'chaim. We should all be very angry at all of this. But if that's overtaking your whole mind and your whole being, and all you're thinking about is negativity, that's a problem. We have to be upset with that, but we have to constantly be working on bringing more light into my own world. What am I doing today to grow? What new candle have I lit in my life? That's why my Shalom school, they have this campaign to go out and get people to do another mitzvah. They're mitzvah raising. Because the goal is that we all have to do another mitzvah. And that's the message I want to share with everybody here tonight. And that's the message that the Lubavitcher Rebbe always spoke about on Chanukah. Chanukah is about a time of giving of light. The ultimate light comes from my soul. I need to ignite my soul. When my soul is on fire, I will automatically give off more light to the entire world. L'chaim, l'chaim. Yes. House. Wow. That same menorah. There you go. The lights of Judah continue. Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael. L'chaim, everybody. L'chaim, l'chaim. This is the picture of them lighting it, of this, the person that owns the menorah. Thank you, Mark.